Hawks on the Wire is a podcast produced by Three Hawks Haven, an e-card company where love, kindness, and connection are designed in each e-card. The story you're about to hear, shared by Joan's guest, will be a story from someone's life, their personal experience. By learning from stories just like this, Three Hawks Haven is able to create beautiful and moving e-cards that can really touch someone's heart. In times of celebration or in the tougher times of life, Three Hawks Haven has e-cards for most any occasion, including some you just can't find anywhere else. You can shop for all their e-cards by going to their website, threehawkshaven.com. Now to Hawks on the Wire with your host, Joan.
Hi, this is Joan, and welcome to Hawks on the Wire. Today, our guest is Tom Drury Jr. Tom is a Thoroughbred racehorse trainer, and he is also the trainer of the champion racehorse, Art Collector. Art Collector won the Bluegrass Stakes in 2020, and he also qualified for the Kentucky Derby. Tom has been a licensed racehorse trainer since he was a young age of 18. And he is going to talk about his journey and his career and all the determination and hard work that it took, the ups and the downs, to make his dream come true. So, Tom, I'm so glad you're here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. You really are. And so we want to get to know you a little bit better. Really, 18 years old, that's when you got your licensed trainer for racehorses.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily needed a license at 18. I don't know that I was quite ready for it, but I did take and pass the test at 18, and I did train my first horse at 18. At the time, I was the youngest licensed trainer in the state, and I've been at it ever since.
That's wonderful. That is really incredible. Did you have some doubts back then that you were going to be able to do this, or did you ever think, no, I'm not going to do this?
Well, when you're 18, you're thinking about winning Kentucky Derbies and Breeders' Cups, and you just know it. You know everything's going to work out, and you don't have a care in the world. You know, you start to get a little older, and then you know, when things haven't taken off, then you start to second guess yourself a little bit, and you know, did I make the right career choice, and is this going to work out? And you know, I think that just comes with maturity, being able to look at things more realistically.
Mm-hmm. Sure. How did you know, Tom, that you wanted to be, you know, a racehorse trainer?
Oh gosh, I've known I wanted to work with horses my entire life. I think originally I wanted to be a jockey, but when I was 16, 17, I went through a little bit of a growth spurt, and I was probably right on the bubble of being, you know, too big, but, you know, just right on that bubble. And I just decided at that point that I was going to focus more on being a trainer and staying on the ground. And although I did gallop horses, I did exercise horses in the mornings, and was able to work for a lot of the top trainers in the country doing that. And you know, of course, that's helped me so much in my training career, being able to work for those guys and see how they do things and what their thought process is with some of the better horses. And, you know, it's certainly helped me to put a little bit of that into my program now. And, you know, looking back on it, I just kind of look at everything as an educational stepping stone. It's, you know, whether it was galloping horses or working for other trainers or being an assistant trainer or some of the various jobs that I did along the way while I still trained horses on the side, you know, on my own. I think it was all just good education for where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I was going to ask you that the people behind you, you know, the jockeys, the trainers, I'm sure there's been several that have helped you.
Yeah, I've had, you know, there's been a lot of good people help me along the way. I wouldn't want to single any one person out. You know, I'd sure hate to forget to mention someone, but there's been so many people help me along the way. And I think when you're trying hard, I think most people are willing to, they want to try to help you a little bit. When they see that you're trying hard and that you're trying to better yourself. And I think the biggest thing for me was from 18 to 28, it was tough going. There was like a 3-year span there where I didn't want to race, and I was having to gallop horses on the side to make enough income to be able to keep training. My training horses just weren't covering their expenses. So, there for about 10 years, it was slow and tough, and there was a lot of second guessing, but, you just you keep showing up every day, you keep working hard, and, eventually we got a couple little breaks, and we were able to win some races with horses, and that led to a couple more, and then it just seems like it kind of started snowballing at that point. I got married when I was 29, and I think, at that point, you start to think about starting a family and kids, and knowing the responsibility that goes along with that. And, children have a way of keeping you really focused, and that's just kind of where I've been.
Yes. And I love how you say showing up every day. I do believe this job, taking care of these horses and training these horses, it basically is a 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah, it is. It's just not a normal 9 to 5 job. You go in really early in the morning, and you take care of your horses. That being said, a lot of times, we're wrapping our day up at lunchtime, providing we don't have one running that afternoon or something like that. So, we'll have a lot of free time in the afternoons, but it's 7 days a week. You gotta be there every day. Those horses, it's like being a cattle farmer. Those horses have to be taken care of every day. And you, as the trainer, you have to be there to make sure that they're taken care of.
Do you remember, back to talking about when you weren't winning any races, do you remember the first race that you won?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at his picture on my office wall right now. His name was West Kentucky Breeze.
Yes, and what racetrack was that?
It was Bluegrass Downs, which it's not even open anymore. It was a $3,000 claiming race, which that I don't even think they run them anymore. It was in October of 1993 before I won my first race.
Wow, that's good though. It's great you've got that picture. And for our listeners, Tom, would you like to explain to them what a claiming race is?
Well, it just allows claiming races go. Well, the bottom of the barrel would be that $3,000 race, but claiming races can go from $3,000 to up to $150,000, and it just allows us to establish a value of a horse. We feel like if we feel like our horse is worth $50,000, then we'll run that horse in a $50,000 claiming race and hope that we're going to win the race. But by running it in that claiming race, we're also allowing someone to purchase our horse for that price out of that race. So in other words, if I run a horse in a $50,000 claiming race and you decide you like the looks of that horse, you like what it looks like on paper, and you want to own that horse, then you'll do what's called dropping a claim, and you'll fill out a slip before the race, and you'll put the money in an account at the racetrack. And once that horse leaves the starting gates, providing there's no other people in on the horse, then you'll own the horse.
Wow. So you better know that you buy that horse.
Pardon?
I said you better know that you want to purchase that horse.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what makes it so tricky. Sometimes, you may have a horse that you think's worth a little more money, but they need to get in a spot to win a race. So you may run them for $50,000 and somebody, we call it on the racetrack, we got caught speeding. We were speeding and somebody claimed our horse. The flip side of that coin is we may have a horse that we're not happy with that, maybe doesn't show as much desire as we'd like, and we run it, and what you see is what, whatever comes home is what you get. So, whoever claims the horse, they don't, they're not allowed to look at the horse before the race. You're not allowed to do any kind of veterinary examination or anything like that. So, it can be a little tricky.
Mm-hmm, sure. And, you know, I know you really make a connection with these horses. How does that feel? I'm sure there's been times where somebody's claimed your horse and maybe you kind of wish that did not happen.
Oh my gosh, I remember when I was a kid, my dad trained and he had a horse claimed at Churchill Downs. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And after the race, I sat outside the barn and it just fell apart. I don't remember how old I was. I know I was young, and I can remember that like it was yesterday. I didn't understand claiming. I didn't understand why this horse was going to somebody else's barn, and that was one of the first things that I was introduced to at the racetrack was the claiming races.
Yes. And then later here you are a trainer and you're going to the claiming races.
Yeah. It goes both ways. I mean, occasionally you're the guy that's losing the horse and occasionally you're the guy that's claiming the horse. So it's a little harder for the smaller outfits, the guys that only have a few horses that are relying on their horses to feed their family. You hate to see those guys have horses claimed because they need the income. The bigger outfits, the guys that have more horses, it's not going to affect them as much. Whether it's a good or bad claim, it's really not going to change their life one way or the other. But the smaller trainers, the claiming races can have a big effect on them, both positive and negative.
Mm-hmm, sure. And I imagine another challenge would be that you would have a horse that maybe got injured, either training or maybe during a race.
Yeah, that's the thing about claiming is, if that horse happens to be injured during the running of the race, it's still your horse after the race. So if you claim a horse and something goes wrong during the running of the race, it's still going to be your horse after the race.
How does that make you feel when one of your horses, gets a little injury? I'm sure you get concerned.
Well, you try to use good judgment. I mean, the horses, they get to be like family members, and by our rights, they're like your kids. You're responsible for their well-being, for everything that they do in life, how much they eat, when they eat, how much they train, where they race, and you've just got such a responsibility not only to your clients but to your horses, and yeah, it's hard sometimes when you walk down there and they tell you your horse has been claimed. It stings and you hate to let them go. But that being said, it is a business and you have to make business decisions. And I usually try to communicate with my owners as much as I can and fill them out on what their thought process is. And that way, should we have a horse get claimed, then we all know going in that that's a possibility. And I try to have that discussion with my clients. And it's just part of the game. But it does, at the end of the day, it's a good thing because it allows us to establish values of the horses to where the horses can compete against other horses in their class range. That's really the whole key of claiming races. And that's why the money value goes from such bottom levels to such high levels, is because there's so many different, levels that horses can compete at. And it allows owners to make the most income on their horses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. And what about shifting up to some of the happy times that you've had as a horse trainer? I'm sure you have a couple of stories that you would like to share.
I'm sorry, I lost you. What was your question there again?
Some of the happiest times.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, Art Collector winning the Bluegrass was, next to my kids being born, that was probably the best day of my life. To be able to win a race at, Keeneland's kind of one of my home tracks that I've always raced at, and here in Kentucky where I grew up at, and to win the big race at their meet, that was that was huge. I mean, it was a day that it's certainly a day I'll never forget. And then and just being involved with once he won the Bluegrass, that kind of made him one of the early favorites for the Derby, and it was a funky year because of the COVID stuff. The Derby had been moved to September, and it certainly wasn't your your typical Derby, but to have one of the Derby favorites and to be able to go through that process and just see what those guys go through with those horses, it was it was really eye opening. As far as talking to the press and the different things that go along with having a Derby horse, it was just a different ballgame than what I've dealt with in the past.
Yes, and I know our collector, he was one of the favorites for the Kentucky Derby, correct?
He was one of the favorites, and he won the Bluegrass, and then he came back and won the Ellis Park Derby in his next start. And unfortunately, the week that they entered for the Derby, he grabbed himself with a hind foot. He was just playing. He was just feeling good, and just accidentally reached up and grabbed the bulb of his heel and kind of peeled some skin back there. And it was just enough that I just wasn't comfortable running him. You just can't go to the Kentucky Derby 80% because you're running against the best horses in the world. So we didn't feel like it would be fair to him to run him. So we decided to sit that one out. And it was kind of hard watching the race, knowing that our horse was looked as good as anything in the race. But at the end of the day, that's what training horses is about. Our number one responsibility is to be the voice for the horse and to be the one that speaks up on the horse's behalf.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Because you have that connection with the horses. I feel like that you understand horses.
Well, you try to. It's not like they can. It's not like they can carry on a conversation. So you try to pay attention to certain things. I'm a big believer that I think a horse's hair coat tells you a lot. If they've got a nice shiny hair coat, that usually means that they're healthy and they're doing well. And if it looks like their hair coat's getting a little dull or mousy looking, then they're probably not doing as well. And it's time to start trying to figure out what's going on. I'm a big believer in appetite. I like to see my horses, that have a good appetite and carry good weight. And there's just certain little things that we trainers all look for. And it's probably a question. If you ask 10 different trainers, you'd probably get 10 different answers. But I think for me, those are probably a couple of the big ones that I try to pay close attention to.
Yes. And let's talk a little bit about what you do on the Highlight Training Center, because I know you tend to get these horses younger and then they come to you and you help the horses kind of know the ground rules, I guess.
Yeah, we do. We kind of do a variety of things. I keep about 50 horses there all together, and about half of them will be horses that I'm going to race myself, and the other half will be horses that I'm working with for whether it's other trainers or other owners, clients, whatever, people may need. We do a lot of young horses, and we just go through the beginning stages, and it's almost like, I compare it to kindergarten in first grade. It's, we teach them the basic lessons of, how to train around other horses, how to go around the racetrack, how to go through the starting gates, things of that nature. And then we also try to evaluate the talent so that people have an idea of what a good next step for them is going to be. I mean, if you're gonna send a horse to one of the leading trainers in the country, then you need to know that horse is going to belong in their barn, and that's where somebody like me gets involved, and I help to evaluate the horse and help the owner to place the horse, and wherever it may be with someone where that horse is going to fit into their program.
Mm-hmm. And you had explained to me before, Tom, that before they actually may come to the racetrack, you do have exercise boys riding them and trotting them in fields. I think you said something about that to help them get used to having a person on their back even.
Well, we do when we go through the breaking process, we're not even really thinking about training them as racehorses at the time. That would be kindergarten. You're just learning the basics: left, right, stop, go. The horses are getting used to wearing a saddle. They're getting used to a rider being on their back. They're just it's all new to them, and each horse is going to be different. You're going to have to treat each horse as an individual, and it's just like school kids. Some of them are going to come along quicker than others, but I like to ride my young horses out in the field as much as possible, because I think going up and down hills, horses have to learn balance with weight on their back. It's just like if you and I, if you're walking along, all of a sudden I jump on your back, it's not going to feel as natural for you when you start running. So it's going to take you a little time to get used to that. Horses are the same way. And I found that riding them out in the field, in an open field, especially one that's got some hills and things like that, I think it helps to teach them balance that they'll be able to use down the road.
Yes, very good. I can tell, I talk to you all day about this stuff. It's just so interesting. And what about your team, your staff, the men and women that ride the horses for you and your assistant manager? I just feel like you all are just kind of like a little family and everybody comes together and gets this done.
Well, I've been blessed. Most of my staff's been with me for a long time. I've got riders that have been with me for 10, 12, 15 years. My assistant's been with me for going on 22 years now. And, I've been very fortunate when it comes to employees. We really are a family and we get along well. And it makes my job so much easier because the guy, they know what's expected of them. They know what we're trying to accomplish. I always joke that my assistant usually knows what I'm thinking before I know what I'm thinking. And I think that just comes along with having a staff that's been with you for a long time and knowing what the expectations are.
Yes. And I've got a question about the weather. Does the weather ever stop you all from getting the horse out there to train on the track?
Oh, sure it does, especially in the wintertime. We're going to have days where it's just so bitterly cold that we can't train. And we have what's called an artificial racetrack at Skylight, which allows us, it's called an all-weather surface, which it doesn't freeze. So that allows us a lot more consistency than people training on dirt or sand racetracks, just because the sand racetracks freeze in the wintertime. Once the temperature gets down in the 20s, as it'll certainly do here in Kentucky, those tracks tend to freeze and you can't, until they thaw back out, you can't use them. So I think we've got a little bit of an advantage having an all-weather racetrack where I'm stable, but there's still days where it's just so bitterly cold, we just choose not to take the horses outside.
I understand. Or maybe if it's just pouring down raining. If it's raining.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes sometimes if it's, if any kind of weather conditions, lightning is something that'll usually keep us from training. We certainly don't want to have, somebody's investment out there training if there's a lot of lightning. So, you really just try to use good judgment in those situations.
Very good. Well, and going back to your career, Tom, I'm wondering, I know that you've grown so much and you've had challenges and you've met them and you've had some wonderful victories like with Art Collector. So I'm wondering, what would you tell that younger Tom if you could talk to him, say when he's 20 or 30 or 40? What kind of advice would you give him?
I don't know. I've thought about that a lot. There's one side of me that says, if it's your passion and it's truly your dream, then don't let anything stop you. You keep working at it every day until you get to where you want to be. Then the fatherly side comes out in me, and what I would tell my kids is, if you want to do this, that's fine, but let's go get a college degree first, and let's have something to fall back on just in case it's needed. So, I kind of made my decision at a very young age of what I wanted to do, and I've been doing it ever since then. And I've been blessed to be able to find some success and to be able to take care of my family. And I'm living a dream, but that doesn't mean it works like that for everyone. So I think my advice would be to always work hard and always pursue your dream, but always have a plan B just in case, and something to, just something to fall back on just in case.
Mm-hmm. That's very good advice. And I loved your advice that you had told me the other day. I got to meet Art Collector, by the way, which was a wonderful experience. But I remember you saying, you're going after your dream or your vision. You get up every day and you show up every day and you go after it. And that just really impressed me. And I think that you have actually you are so inspiring with that. You have shown people this is what I did, and look at me now. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, we've been so blessed to be in the situation that we're in, and to find the success that we found. And it took a long time. I mean, I've been training horses for 30 years now, and it certainly didn't happen overnight. But I can't imagine myself ever doing anything else. It's all I've ever wanted to do. It's still my passion. I still get excited about it, and I think that I don't think everybody can say that about their job. So I feel like I'm pretty lucky when it comes to that.
Yes, very good. Do you have any idea what the future holds for you and your horses?
That's the thing about the horse business is last January, February, when the COVID stuff first started, we were scared to death that, we were going to be completely put out of business, once the racetrack started closing and people weren't allowed to train. And it was really scary times for everyone in the industry. And because of the COVID stuff, that's what left our collector in my barn to where I was able to train him. So, you just never know what life's going to throw at you. And I think, I think you have to be willing to ride out the storms, but the sun's going to shine again. And if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually you're going to get somewhere.
Oh, that's great, Tom. Just great. I really appreciate you sharing your story and talking with us. Is there anything else you would like to share for our listeners, or any other advice, or anything you think the horses might tell us?
Well, I think the big thing with horse racing is, we always enjoy having people come out to the races and realize that, there's so much effort that goes into each horse that's in each race. And I think anyone that stands around the paddock and just watches the horses and the people, if you're paying attention, you'll see a lot of nervous energy. You'll see a lot of excitement, and it's an adrenaline rush like no other. And my advice would be to if one of your listeners has never been to a horse race, then it's certainly worth a Saturday afternoon with the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great idea. Very good. Well, yes. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. I just appreciate you so much for being with us today. And you are just an amazing horse trader. So you just keep that up.
Yes, ma'am. We will. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. And I want to thank our dear listeners for joining us again. It is always it's just so good to be with you. And please click that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. And please share our stories. And remember, we do have e-cards for all sorts of occasions. Perhaps you know somebody with a dream, and we have e-cards to encourage people. Reach out to someone. And also, if you have a story you think you would like to share with the Hawks, please go to 3hawkshaven.com and send us your email. We would love to hear from you. The Hawks would love to share your story. Thank you so much.